At just 22 years old, Caitlin Clark has already changed the game of women's basketball.
Are they going to get the ball up in time? Clark for the win! Yeah! There's nothing Caitlin Clark can't do.
She leads the league in fast break points and has made a mark with her impressive three-point shooting. During her college career, she broke numerous records, including becoming the all-time leading scorer in both men's and women's basketball history.
For history, the all-time leading scorer.
In a time when women's basketball often doesn't get the spotlight it deserves, Caitlin Clark is drawing huge crowds. Fans travel from all over the country just to see her play, filling stadiums wherever she goes. It's no exaggeration to say that she is one of the most important and influential figures in basketball today.
Right here, Caitlin Clark just dancing with the basketball, going to her left, stepping into it.
Back Bentley. Here's Clark, a good look from three. She got it!
Caitlin Clark is undoubtedly one of the most significant figures the WNBA has ever seen. Just one look at her in action, and it's easy to see why she's such a big deal. Her incredible skills and performances on the court have set her apart, drawing comparisons to the greatest players in the game, including the so-called GOAT of the NBA. However, not everyone is thrilled about Clark's rise. Diana Taurasi, who has made some controversial comments about Clark, seems to be feeling overshadowed. Taurasi has been trying to shift the attention from Clark to herself, which raises questions about her motivations.
Because you were young yourself, and tell me if I'm wrong, weren't you named to the roster as soon as you graduated, right? You were young.
Yeah, after I won 3 national championships in a row, I was named.
Jeez. So how did you deal with that? I mean, I know Caitlin's on she's got all this media attention. I can only imagine how hard it is balancing all that as a 22-year-old. So how did you handle it? And also, do you have any advice for her moving forward, how to handle it?
Yeah, I mean, like anything.
Taurasi, a basketball legend in her own right, was also a young standout when she joined the professional ranks, having won 3 national championships before making her mark. Despite her own impressive career, it's notable that Taurasi was once one of Clark's idols. It's a bit of a twist that someone Clark looked up to now seems to be struggling with the spotlight that Clark has earned. Caitlin Clark was one of the first women's basketball players Diana Taurasi idolized growing up. However, after Clark was drafted as the consensus #1 pick in the WNBA, Taurasi never reached out with any words of encouragement or advice. Instead, Taurasi chose to downplay Clark's abilities publicly, stating on live television that if she had the #1 pick, she would choose Paige Buchers over Clark.
Second Paige. Next question.
So if you had the #1 pick this year, you would take Paige over Caitlin?
Absolutely.
Despite this, on June 30th, 2024, the two players were finally set to face off, and Taurasi was about to witness firsthand the impact Clark was making on women's basketball. The day was sweltering in Phoenix, with temperatures soaring above 110 degrees. But that didn't stop 177,000 fans from packing into the Footprint Center. The sheer number of fans underscored Clark's star power, as they were all there to see her play. As one fan recalled, even from their seat, it was clear every corner of the arena was filled, highlighting just how significant Clark's presence was for the sport.
Yeah, when I was sitting down in my seat all the way down there, I looked in every single corner of the Footprint Center to just make sure that somebody was sitting in every single seat, and they are.
For Caitlin Clark, it was just another day at the office. She reveled in the excitement of her fans, signing autographs and enjoying the buzz surrounding her performance. In contrast, for Diana Taurasi, despite her 20-year career, this game was arguably the most significant WNBA event she had ever experienced.
In front of the largest crowd since 1997.
What about that?
How about that?
The Footprint Center was packed with 177,000 fans, the largest crowd since 1997. Front row tickets were selling for a staggering $2,000 each, and even courtside seats were fetching top dollar.
Courtsides were going for as high as $2,000 for the front row for this game.
To put this into perspective, the Minnesota Lynx, a top team in the Western Conference and one of the most popular in the WNBA, usually sells courtside tickets for about $257. Taurasi understood the historical importance of this game and recognized that she was witnessing something extraordinary. As she introduced herself to the crowd and prepared for the game, she couldn't have been happier. Everything seemed to be going her way, as she had full control and was able to get whatever she wanted from the experience. Not only was Caitlin Clark scoring effortlessly, but she was also racking up assists, particularly by passing to the towering 6'9" Brittany Griner, who seemed to dominate the court like a character from Attack on Titan. This was the first full WNBA game the viewers had watched with Griner, and their initial reaction was to question Griner's bold claim that she could take on DeMarcus Cousins in his prime. After watching Griner play a complete game, it became clear that the comparison was quite far-fetched. Cousins would have easily overpowered her. Shifting back to Diana Taurasi, she started the game strong, but soon felt the intense pressure of Caitlin Clark's hype. Clark made her presence known with a deep three-pointer that left everyone in awe. Moments later, Clark showcased her dazzling moves by completely breaking the ankles of her teammate, Rebecca Allen. It was a jaw-dropping moment, and the thought crossed the viewer's mind about how it would have felt if Taurasi had been on the receiving end of that move, especially if Clark's shot had gone in. As the game progressed, Caitlin Clark and the Fever began to close the gap after a hot start from the Mercury. Despite Taurasi's efforts to respond, the game didn't go as she had hoped by the end of the first quarter. At this point in the game, Diana Taurasi was really feeling the pressure. Outside, the temperature was over 110 degrees Celsius, but inside the arena, the intensity was even higher. Caitlin Clark was on fire, and it was clear why she had everyone talking. Despite Taurasi's bold claims about her own abilities and her critique of Clark, she struggled to back up her words on the court. As Caitlin Clark continued to heat up, the viewer couldn't help but question Taurasi's earlier comments. Taurasi, often celebrated as one of the greatest players in WNBA history, seemed intimidated by Clark throughout the game. She only challenged Clark once during a pick and roll, where Clark made a clean steal, though the referee called a foul. After reviewing the play, it was hard to see any infraction, suggesting that the refs might have been unfairly targeting Clark. The officiating was another point of frustration. Earlier, Clark was called for an offensive foul in a situation that seemed like a defensive foul to many fans. This controversial call was just one example of the criticism WNBA referees faced for their decisions against Clark. Adding to the disappointment was Taurasi's reluctance to face Clark directly. Despite her passive-aggressive remarks, she avoided taking on Clark in key moments. For instance, when given the chance to guard Clark, Taurasi passed the defensive assignment to a teammate. It was clear that Taurasi, despite her talk, wasn't eager to confront Clark, which only added to the letdown for fans hoping to see a true showdown. Every time Diana Taurasi matched up against Caitlin Clark, it was pretty clear that Taurasi wasn't up to the challenge. While Taurasi's teammate might have been a better defender, it was surprising to see her, a player often hailed as the greatest of all time, avoid the fight. Michael Jordan never backed down from defending Kobe Bryant, even when Jordan was with the Wizards and Kobe was at his peak. Taurasi's reluctance to face Clark head-on made it seem like she was afraid of being embarrassed. Perhaps the overwhelming presence of 177,000 fans in the stands was too much for her, or maybe she didn't want to risk getting outplayed like her teammate had with the broken ankle. Whatever the reason, Taurasi shied away from the challenge that many fans were eager to see. As if to underline her dominance, Caitlin Clark continued to shine. For instance, after Taurasi missed a three-pointer, Clark took the ball down the court and nailed an impressive three-pointer from the logo. On the very next play, Clark baited Taurasi into a steal and then executed a perfect assist to her teammate. Clark's performance was making Taurasi look like an easy target, and it was becoming Diana's worst nightmare. It was almost poetic that Taurasi, who had been dismissing Clark's skills on national television, was being outplayed by the very player she had downplayed. Watching Clark outperform Taurasi only made Taurasi's earlier smack talk seem even more misplaced. To make matters even worse for Diana Taurasi, she had the game practically in her hands at one point. The Phoenix Mercury were leading by 15 points in the second half, but Caitlin Clark led an impressive comeback for the Indiana Fever. Clark was a driving force in narrowing the gap, turning the tide of the game. Diana's role in the Mercury's eventual loss became glaringly apparent. One critical moment was when she missed a three-pointer and then failed to hustle back on defense. This lapse led to a flagrant foul, giving Indiana 2 free throws and possession of the ball. As the game wound down, Diana had a chance to extend her team's lead, but only managed to make one of her 2 free throws. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark stepped up and calmly sunk both of her free throws, further tightening the game. The scoreboard didn't lie. The Mercury were losing, and Diana's earlier bravado seemed to evaporate. The smirks on her face were replaced by visible frustration as the reality of her performance set in. With thousands of fans watching and millions more on television, Diana was facing a humbling defeat. To add to the irony, the Fever, who hadn't beaten a team with a winning record all season, secured their first victory against Diana's team. After the game, Diana finally had to acknowledge Caitlin's skill and performance. It was clear that the words Diana had used to downplay Clark's abilities were now biting back, as she faced the humbling reality of being outplayed by the very player she had dismissed. However, the drama involving the WNBA's criticism of Clark, with Diana Taurasi playing a major role, turned into quite a spectacle. The whole situation was nothing short of a circus. What should have been a celebration of Caitlin's talent and success instead became a dramatic showdown, drawing attention away from her incredible performance and turning it into a media frenzy. This whole episode has been a wild ride, full of twists and turns, highlighting how one player's success can stir up a whirlwind of reactions in the sports world. That's a wrap for today's video. We'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the thrilling showdown between Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi, and how it has highlighted the electrifying moments in the WNBA? How do you feel about Caitlin Clark's stunning performance and the impact of her game against Diana? Share your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Your feedback keeps us energized and helps us create even better content. Stay tuned for more incredible insights and stories from the world of basketball. See you in the next video.